So we are going to go ahead and jump in to our webinar today. First and foremost, I would like very much to welcome everyone to this webinar. We have been very excited for the release of this document, which hopefully you all are aware will be coming up on April 1st. So on April 1st, we're going to have the launch of the new version of the certification requirements, as well as a number of supplemental documents that go along with that. With that standard as well. For those that don't know me, I am Jody Bird. I am Executive Director of SPRAT, and today I am joined by Dave Sartoni, who is the Chair of the Certification Requirements Committee. Dave's committee has been working on this new version of the document for, I would say, probably several years in the making, but we would not have been able to do it without our membership as well, who was active in voting and providing updates during the voting process or balloting process of this document. So today we're going to just have a very kind of overarching look at some of the main changes to the document so you all are aware and prepared for that launch on April 1st. We are going to be having an additional session following this one. There's going to be a slight break. That one is going to be focused mostly on evaluation session hosts and evaluators. However, anyone can attend it. Both sessions are being recorded. Only exception is the second session will be only available within our members only section. But at any point, you can reach out to the SPRAT office if you have any questions. We are in a webinar style setting here, so everyone will be remained on mute. I encourage you to use the chat function that I will be watching throughout the session while Dave is going to be facilitating to ask any questions. We will have some time at the end for a more formalized question and answer, which we can have people raise their hands and I can unmute. But for the duration of the actual webinar, we request that you go ahead and put those in writing. And when appropriate, I'll go ahead and release those to Dave. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Dave.
Thanks, Jody. Greetings, everybody. Very excited to for you guys attending the session today, and very excited to be able to present the work that our committee has done over the last several years, with the culmination being the release of the updated standard on April 1st, like Jody mentioned. So again, today we are going to be covering a summary of updates to the SPRAT rope access certification requirements. There may be some questions that come up in the chat, and I may choose to defer those questions to a later portion of the presentation, but I'll assure you that if you have a question and you place it in the chat, we will get to it before we're done with the webinar. All right, next slide, Jody. First, I wanted to make sure everybody is aware of how they can get to this document. So the updated standard is available on the SPRAT website. If you scroll to the section labeled Recent News and go to Forthcoming Standard Now Live, you'll be able to look at this document. This document has been approved with release April 1st. At that link, there's also available the draft version of the rope access evaluation guideline, which is a supporting document for the rope access certification requirement. That document is in the final stages, but it has not formally been completed yet. The QR code on the screen and the link below will also take you to that page. Next slide, Jody. So specific to the rope access certification requirement standards, there are no changes within section 1, 2, and 3, no changes to section 5, and no changes to section 9. So following this slide, we are going to review the changes to section 4 and section 6 through 8 in detail. Section 4 of the rope access certification requirement standard is titled the Rope Access Evaluation performance principles. For those that might not be familiar with this section provides the foundation for the grading of an evaluation session. You'll see that a lot of the information from this section is typically covered, maybe somewhat in paraphrase format, but it's covered during the certification session that an evaluator runs, and the information is covered at some point during the introduction of the evaluation session. And it basically provides a foundation for how the evaluator is going to perform the grading for that session. So the one change that has happened to Section 4 is a new performance principle has been added to address clearance requirement concerns within the evaluation environment. And that relates to both the use of fall arrest systems as well as backup systems. And if you're going into Section 4 of the standard, that would be 4.1.5 is the updated performance principle. The bulk of the changes to the document happen within sections 6 through 8. Those are the level 1, the level 2, and the level 3 technician requirements. There's been a bit of an overhaul on the language for all of these requirements. So we've updated language to improve the clarity of all the requirements. We're going to cover the specific updates for all 3 levels in highlights in the next slides. And then detailed guidance is provided in the rope access evaluation guidelines. And the information is divided into 3 categories for each requirement: perspective, performance, and training. So where the certification requirements sort of gives you the bare bones for a requirement, the evaluation guidelines provides additional detail. And the three categories, basically perspective, performance, and training. We have information in each one of those categories for each one of those requirements. The perspective section provides context for why the requirement is being tested. The performance section basically outlines what candidates are expected to do to successfully pass that requirement. And then the training sections provides considerations for preparing candidates who are going to be testing for that requirement. Next slide, Jody. So this is a snapshot of the skills required for certification placed on a one-page visual. We refer to this as our grid. This appears in section 5 of the rope access evaluation guidelines. It also appears on the SPRAT poster. You may notice that from the one that's currently in use, that the requirement have been reorganized into 4 categories. There's a general category. There's a maneuvers category. There's a system construction and operation category. And then there is a rescue category. So at this point, Jody, I'm going to go address the first question that was placed in the chat, and I'll probably cover it again once we get to the specific level 3 requirements. So if we're noting into the general category, there's no requirement for a team scenario, and there's no requirement for management and communication. If you've been following the genesis and the rationale for updates to the standard, the committee felt strongly that we didn't want to have requirement related to supervision evaluated during an 8-hour rope access evaluation session, and that's the rationale for why those requirements were removed. However, if you look under system construction and operation, you'll see that lateral movement exercises are still required for both level 2 and level 3. So the lateral movement requirement for level 2 would be the cross-hauling exercise, and the lateral movement requirement for level 3 candidates would be the tension rope system. So level 3s are still going to have to rig and operate, they're going to have to construct and operate a tension rope system as part of the certification. They just won't be graded on the ability to manage and supervise a group. Hopefully that helps answer that question. And then there was a component of that question that talked about the rescue scenarios. We still have rescue scenarios for level 3 candidates, and we'll explain a little bit more in detail what those entail once we get to the specific level 3 updates. One of the other things that I wanted to bring to the attention is that any of the lower level skills that are a white box can be required at an upper level. So we don't have any black boxes for a level 2 candidate for any required level 1 skills. And we don't have any black boxes for level 3 candidates for any required level 1 and level 2 skills. And upper level candidates are still going to be required to complete 50% of the gray boxes within each one of the categories. There's a question that came out in the chat related to the grading of candidates working together. And I will defer that question to the next session, the one related to evaluation topics. Next slide, Jody. Okay, so this is a close-up view of the first two categories, the general and maneuvers category. One thing you may notice is the required adherence to performance principles is going to be required for all 3 levels of certification. And again, we mentioned that is the foundation for how grading takes place during an evaluation session. Next slide, Jody. This is an overview of the system construction and operation category. One note that I'm going to mention now in here is the updated language for remote rescue systems, currently referred to as rope access systems pre-rig to lower. So that's new language that's replacing the old language. Next slide, Jody. This is an overview of the rescue requirements. So what we'll do next is we're going to look at the specific updates for each level. So we'll start with the updates to the level 1 requirement, and then we'll go to the level 2 requirements, and then lastly we'll go to the level 3 requirements. And each one of the updates is broken down from within the categories that we just observed on our grid. So starting with the updates to level 1 requirements, specifically maneuvers, the use of backup devices, ascenders, descenders, and changeovers are now consolidated into a single requirement. And that requirement is labeled fundamental maneuvers. And that's 6.2 within the standard. Evaluators will have the opportunity to evaluate this requirement as a standalone exercise or within other exercises that the candidates are completing during the evaluation session. So that will be at the discretion of the evaluator. Passing rope protection is combined with the edge negotiation requirement. That's 6.3 in the standard. It's currently happening in most places already, so it just makes sense to have those combined into a single requirement. Okay, moving into the next category of updates for level 1 requirement, system construction and operation. Construction of a two-rope system replaces the anchorage system requirement. So instead of just being a standalone component of the rope access system, meaning a level 1 could just rig an anchorage system somewhere, now they're rigging it as part of a rope access system with the expectation that the system is going to be used to complete some other requirement, either by that candidate or a different candidate within the evaluation session. Next slide, Jody. The level 1 rescue requirement remains the same requirement. It's a white box for all upper levels, however, and that's requirement 6.12. So the level 1 rescue requirement is still a rescue from an adjacent set of ropes, and it's going to require the candidate to do a transition from ascent to descent of the rescue subject. So nothing's different there. The difference is that now this requirement is also going to be required for all upper level candidates. Currently is only required for expired upper level candidates or candidates that are doing a direct entry at level 2 or level 3. With the updates on April 1st, all upper level candidates will be required to complete the level 1 rescue requirement. And this requirement can be combined as a standalone exercise, or it can be combined with one of the other rescue required for that level of certification. It can be done from an adjacent set of ropes or from the same ropes, provided that there is a transition of the rescue subject from ascent to descent. But all upper level candidates will have to complete this requirement. Okay, those are the updates for the level 1 requirements. Moving into the updates for the level 2 requirements. One update in the general category, estimating clearance requirement within rope access system has been added to system analysis. System analysis is a requirement that we currently have in place. But we've added an emphasis in this requirement surrounding the clearance requirements topic. This requirement will be evaluated both as part of the written test as well as during a rope access evaluation. The written test would have questions related to factors that may be affecting the clearance requirement. While the question that might be asked from an evaluator to a candidate during the rope access evaluation will focus on estimating the free fall potential of the system that is being used. Next slide, Jody. Updates to level 2 requirements continued. We're going into the system construction and operation category. Hitches, Prusik, and tied-off Munter hitch, as an example, have been removed from requirements. So these will not be required at any upper levels. Candidates may still use hitches, provided that they're tied correctly and used correctly to complete requirements, but they are not required to. So for instance, a candidate could choose to use properly tied off Munter hitches for completing the remote rescue system requirement, but that's not something that they're required to use. So they could use other options instead of tied off Munter hitches. But provided that they're being used correctly and tied correctly, they can still be used at the candidate's choice. Construction of two-rope system for edge negotiation replaces anchorage system requirements. So currently we have a large load sharing system required for level 2 candidates. We still have that, but it's now incorporated into a two-rope system that is negotiating an edge, and that's 7.5 in the standard. Candidates shall descend using the retrievable two-rope system they construct, 7.6 in the standard. Currently, candidates are only asked to construct that system, but not to actually use it. And so in the update, they'll actually have to use the system that they construct. The pitch head break-in and lower current requirement is subdivided into two separate requirements. There are two raising and lowering requirements. The first one, the candidate that is operating the system is in suspension. That's 7.7 in the standard. On the second of the requirement, the load is in suspension, and the candidate can be standing on a platform or on the ground, and that's 7.8 in the standard. These two separate raising and lowering requirements can be combined into a single exercise. They can be combined with other exercise like the cross-hauling requirement at the evaluator's discretion. But they're in the standard, they're written as two separate requirements, 7.7 and 7.8. Updates to level 2 requirements around rescue. So we're in the rescue category. The level 2 rescue requirements are replaced with the following. We have a rescue from the same rope set, followed by a rope-to-rope transfer. So that's 7.11 in the standard. And then we have a rescue from a fall arrest system. That's 7.12 in the standard. So the current requirement of rescuing past knots and rescuing from horizontal aid have been replaced by the two requirements that we have listed on the slide. And the idea is that these two requirements are evaluated as two separate requirements, and they should not be combined together. Okay, that completes the updates for the level 2 requirements. So we're moving into the updates to the level 3 requirements. So echoing the answer to the question that I provided earlier from the general section, management and communication and team scenario exercises are removed from requirements. And then just like for the update to the level 2 requirement, estimating clearance requirement within rope access system has been added to system analysis. In the level 3 requirements, this is 8.3 in the standard. Updates to system construction and operations section for level 3. Candidates are going to be required to construct and use deviation or re-anchors as an exercise. So what does that mean is that level 3 candidates are going to be required to construct either a deviation or a re-anchor, and that those systems shall be used either to complete a maneuver requirement, or to complete a rescue requirement. And that's 8.4 in the standard. Updates to level 3 rescue requirements. The level 3 rescue requirements are replaced with 2 rescues from any lower level maneuvers. And this is 8.7 in the standard. So level 3 candidates, in addition to completing the requirement for level 1, which we mentioned is going to be required by all upper level candidates, they will have to complete 2 rescues. And the rescue subjects can be positioned within any of the following systems: deviation, knot pass, rope-to-rope transfer, re-anchor, or aid climbing. And that could be horizontal or vertical aid climbing. The rope access evaluation guidelines provides additional guidance for where the rescue subject can be positioned within the system. And that's where the detailed guidance is going to be found for that. There was a question that came up regarding large re-anchor. So if we sort of like step back for a second, we mentioned that level 3 candidates are required to construct either a deviation or a re-anchor. The parameters for those systems also in the rope access evaluation guidelines, the deviation, the angle of deviation should be around 20 degrees. So similar to the station that candidates would be completing as part of a maneuver requirement. And the re-anchor should have a horizontal span that is greater than 2 meters. So same as the requirement for the maneuvers. So if I'm a level 3 candidate, I may be asked to construct a re-anchor. And then once I construct the re-anchor within those parameters, a rescue subject may be moving through that re-anchor, and then the evaluator is going to ask the candidate to rescue that rescue subject through the re-anchor that has been constructed. Jody, can we move back one previous slide? Move back 2 now, 2 slides before. Perfect. So there was a question that came in around a system analysis. So candidates are going to be asked to estimate forces that result on the system that they construct. So if I'm looking at a level 3 candidate, that could be the deviation that was constructed that we just discussed. That could be a re-anchor that was constructed as the requirement that we just discussed. And that could be a lateral movement system that could entail a cross-haul system or a tension rope system. And what we're looking for is a general estimate of the resultant forces on the anchorage system. We're not expecting people to have a very, very exact calculator type answer, but just an estimate of the forces. I hope that answers that question. Jody, can we move back to the level 3 rescue requirements? Next slide, please. As Jody mentioned, this is going to go into effect on April 1st. So this concludes the information on the presentation. I'm going to turn it back to Jody and open the room for questions.
Thanks, Dave. It was really informative. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and just open it up. With this, you are welcome to go ahead and raise your hands and I can unmute you, or you can, of course, type into the chat field as we've been doing. We do have one that just came through here. It says clearance requirements will be interesting because mostly the backup is not very effective until a certain height is reached. Will this mean twin tension systems should be used close to the ground? If yes, until what height?
That's a great question, Jody. Can you switch gears and pull up the rope access certification approved standard? So to address this question, the certification requirement committee added a performance principle into section 4. So that's section 4.1.5. So what I'd like to do is just bring that up on the screen so that folks can have a chance to see what the language is on the specific performance principle. When you can, Jody, if you can scroll to 4.1.5. And I'm going to read from the document here. Provided all other performance principles are satisfied, the use of a fall arrest system, including a backup system, when available clearance is less than required clearance, shall not affect grading. Basically, what that means is that provided that the candidate is adequately managing the free fall potential of the system that they're using, even though they may not have the required clearance, that will not affect the grading. Obviously, if they're not doing a suitable job at managing the free fall potential, then the evaluator of the session will grade that accordingly. Any more questions?
Okay. Oh, anyone else have any other areas they would like for us to cover today before we go ahead and close up this session? Fantastic.
Jody,
As you
can you refresh people where that recording is going to be available as well before we sign off?
Yep, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add this recording to our YouTube channel. So we will have it available there. I will go ahead and post that link directly to our website. So you will be able to show that as well. If you are a member, it will be in the document repository. So you can always access it by logging into your account. But for those that need the public access, it will be on that YouTube channel. And just so everyone is aware, this will not be our final informational session regarding the cert requirements or the updated version of the cert requirements. Obviously, we have the session upcoming that's more specific to evaluators and evaluation session hosts. However, we will be doing quite a bit of information on this upcoming version, and we'll be doing some live demonstrations as well during our annual conference. So if you are planning to join us in Reno in a couple weeks, you will be getting some more visuals regarding the changes to this document. If you have not yet registered for the conference, I encourage you to do that sooner rather than later. Registration is still open and it will be open until either the event or we sell out. The SPRAT office is always open to answering questions. Any questions we can't answer, we obviously will find the appropriate person to answer your question. So if you think of a question after the session is concluded, feel free to reach out. Easiest way is to email us at info@sprat.org. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this session. Thanks, Dave, for facilitating and putting together those spectacular slides. And hopefully we will see a majority of you in just under an hour.
Thanks, everybody, for attending.